Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava, page 22a, starting at the top of the Amud, the words Vehatanya. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in a brisa, if a dog or a goat jumped, regardless of whether they jumped from above to below or from below to above, their owners are exempt from all liability? Rav Papa interpreted it in the following way. Their manners of movement were changed from the typical manner of movement for their species. The dog moved by leaping, while the goat moved by climbing. The Gemara asks, if that is so, why are the owners exempt from liability? After all, they still cause damage. The Gemara answers, the brisa does not intend to say that they are completely exempt, but that they are exempt from paying the full cost of the damage. They are, however, liable to pay for half the cost of the damage, as is the halacha in any case of damage caused by atypical behavior, as such acts are classified as goring. Hakelev Shinatal, the Mishnah teaches with regard to a dog that took a cake that had been baked directly on hot coals and went to a stack of grain to eat it, and ate the cake and at the same time ignited the stack of grain with the coal that it had taken along with the cake. The owner of the dog must pay the full cost of the damage of the cake, and he must pay for half the cost of the damage to the stack of grain. With regard to damage caused by a fire lit by one person spreading to a location other than where it lit, the Gemara cites a dispute among the Amoraim. It was stated, Rabbi Yochanan says his liability for damage caused by his fire is due to his arrows, meaning that the damage caused by a fire in a location other than where it was lit is compared to damage caused by an arrow shot at a distant target. Reish Lakish says his liability for damage is caused by his fire due to his property. So in the Aramaic or the Hebrew language, it's mishum chitzav, or it's mishum memono. Chitzo or memono. Is it because of his arrow or his possessions? Like it's one of his animals. Okay. The Gemara asks, what's the reason that Rish Lakish did not state his opinion in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan? The Gemara answers, he could have said to you that fire is not comparable to an arrow, as an arrow proceeds as a result of his direct force, while this fire does not proceed as a result of his direct force, but requires wind to carry it from the location where it was to the location of the damage. The Gemara asks about the other opinion, what is the reason that Rabbi Yochanan does not state in accordance with the opinion of Rish Lakish? The Gemara answers, he could have said to you that one's fire is not comparable to his possessions, as property is tangible substance, but this fire is not a tangible substance. Okay. Whether it's tangible or physical, okay, that's interesting debate. The Gemara attempts to settle the dispute. We learned with regard to a dog that took a cake that had been baked on hot coals and went to a stack of grain to eat it, and it ate the cake, at the same time ignited the stack of grain with the coal that had been taken along with the cake. Highly unlikely, but whatever. The owner of the dog must pay the full cost of the damage for the cake, and he must pay for half the cost of damage for the stack of grain. Granted, according to the one who says that one's liability for damage caused by his fire is due to its similarity, like how can he even prove this? You know, how could you prove this? There are witnesses that are watching where the coal was on the cake. Okay, anyway, is due to his arrows. His fire is similar to the arrows of the dog, and therefore he must pay for half the cost of the damage caused by the dog's force, as in the case of pebbles. But according to the one who says that one's liability for damage is caused by his fire due to its similarity to his property, this fire is not the property of the owner of the dog, rather it is property of the owner of the cake. So why is the owner of the dog liable? The Gemara answers, Rish Lakish could have said to you, with what are we dealing here? We are dealing with a case where the dog took the coal and did not place the cake on the stack, rather it threw it onto the stack. The ruling of the Mishnah is, for the cake which the dog ate, the owner must pay the full cost of the damage, and for the specific spot on the stack of grain that was damaged by throwing of the coal there, the owner must pay for half the cost of the damage, as in the case of pebbles. And for the stack of grain as a whole, he is exempt because his liability for damage caused by the spread of the fire is due to its similarity to his property, and in this case, it was not his property. Rabbi Yochanan can explain the Mishnah in a more straightforward manner. It is discussing a case where the dog placed the cake with the coal directly on the stack of grain in order to eat the cake. Accordingly, the owner of the dog must pay the full cost of the damage for the cake and for the specific spot where the coal was put down, as these cases of damage were caused directly by the dog. And for the rest of the stack of grain, he must pay half the cost of the damage, because, Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, one is liable for the damage caused by the fire due to its similarity to arrows shot by force. The Gemara suggests, come and hear a proof from the Mishnah. In the case of 62b, the case of a camel that was laden with flax was passing through a public domain, and his flax extended into a store at the edge of the public domain, and the flax caught fire from a lamp in the store belonging to the storekeeper. And as a result of the burning flax, the camel set fire to the building together with all of its contents. The owner of the camel is liable for the damage. But if the storekeeper placed his lamp outside in the public domain, thereby causing the flax on the camel to catch fire, and consequently the building was set on fire, the storekeeper is liable. Rabbi Yehuda says, in a case where the lamp placed outside was a Hanukkah lamp, the storekeeper is exempt from liability, as there is a mitzvah to place a Hanukkah lamp outside. Granted, according to the one who says the arrows of the camel, granted to the one who says his fire is due to his arrows, is the arrows of the camel. But according to the one who says is due to his property, this fire is not the property of the owner of the camel. Rish Lakish could have said to you, with what are we dealing here? Where the camel ignited the entire building. The Gemara asks, if that is so, say the latter clause. If the storekeeper placed his lamp outside, the storekeeper is liable. And if where the camel ignited the building, the entire building, why is the storekeeper liable? If the camel stood, the Gemara now asks, if the camel stood and ignited the entire building, all the more so it should be that the storekeeper should be exempt from any liability, and the owner of the camel should be liable. Rav Huna bar Manoah said, in the name of Rav Ika, with what are we dealing here? We are dealing with a case where the camel stood in order to urinate, and while doing so, set the building ablaze. In that case, the incident is deemed an accident, as the owner could not have moved the camel from the spot. Okay, we'll stop here.